All right, we are going to get started. So, hello everybody, my name is Jessica Karen, and today we're going to be chatting with you a little bit about student rights and responsibilities. So let me pull up our presentation here. Minimize the screen. So, student rights and responsibilities, as I said, we're going to get into what that means here at Lewis and Clark College. But essentially, I can break it down for you as easy as it's about your rights on campus and the responsibility all of us have to our community here at Lewis and Clark in being a good pioneer on campus. I'm going to introduce myself and my staff here in a second, but I just want to give a caveat that if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat, and my staff will be keeping track of these and answering them as best we can. Also hoping to have some time towards the end for questions if there are any, but if we do run out of time, you can always reach out to SR using our contact info that'll be featured at the end of this presentation. So let's start off with introductions. As I said, my name is Jessica Karen. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the current interim director for student rights and responsibilities here at Lewis and Clark. I've been in this position for about 3 months at this point, and prior to that, I was actually an area director here on campus for Stewart, Odell, and Aiken, or SOA. So shout out to y'all that are living over in SOA. I may favor you a little bit. Kind of. As far as fun facts outside of my job here at Lewis and Clark, I have 2 cats named Knox and Ollivander, and I am currently in my 2nd year of a D&D campaign with some friends off campus, and we play once a week via Zoom right now. So I'm going to have my graduate assistants here introduce themselves as well, and we'll have a guest come in at the very end who's going to talk about Title IX. But Michael and Kate, why don't you get started? Michael, we'll start with you. Name, pronouns, a little bit about you, and a fun fact.
Hi, everyone. As Jess mentioned, my name is Michael Paz. I'm a 2nd-year grad student at the School of Ed at Lewis and Clark for Student Affairs and Administration. I'm originally from Southern California, the LA area, and I would say a fun fact about me, and the first part of this probably isn't fun, but within this year that I've lived in Portland from moving up from San Francisco, I've been hit by 2 cars while riding my bike, which isn't that fun. The second part, though, is more funny for me, is that each time the person who was hitting me with their car got out and asked me, "Hey man, what happened?" And I'm just like, "Hey, I can't tell you more of what happened. You hit me with your car." So it's just, I don't know if that's Portland nice. Maybe that's the issue here, but yeah. So really interested and happy to hear that everyone is here with us now. So thanks.
Hi, folks. My name is Kate Baca. I am a graduate assistant and resolution coordinator for our office. I'm also classmates with Michael in the Student Affairs program over at the Graduate School of Education and Counseling. And my fun fact is, as of lately, I think I have been consuming more tea than any other beverage, including water, which is sometimes a bad thing some days, but I have probably like a dozen different types of teas in my cabinet. So that's been nice to just like drink all the different tea. But with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Jess so we can get started with our presentation.
Thank you, Kate and Michael. All right, so the things we're going to cover today, again, some of it's going to be dry, so I apologize, hang in there, but it's really important stuff that we want you to know. SRR handles primarily student conduct, so we're going to talk about that today and what happens if someone violates a policy on campus. And we want to be transparent with you with that. We're not trying to trick you or get you in trouble, and so it's really important that we cover what that is, and then what are some common policies that we often see people run into in their first year on campus. So we'll chat about that briefly. Michael and Kate will start us off with those 2 topics. And then we're going to transition into COVID-19, which I'm sure you all have heard way too much about at this point. And shout out to y'all coming into this class, because I know that for those of you who just left high school, it's been, a transition that was not expected. It didn't happen the way it should have. And your first year on campus is going to look very different too. And we're going to try and make that as smooth as possible for you as you transition on. And we want you to have all the knowledge that you need to have. And then finally, we're going to talk about Welfare Intervention Network and chat briefly about Title IX. Both of those things, once we explain them, you'll know what they are, but both of those things are not necessarily run by Student Rights and Responsibilities, but they are something that we work closely with. And so we want you to have that information there. That Title IX piece is where we're going to have a guest pop in, which is Casey Beavrich, in charge of our Title IX coordination. So moving on to our first topic, student conduct. Michael, it is up to you. And you can tell me when you need slides flipped.
Sounds good. Yeah, and with this first section, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of our mission, talk about when you'll be able to engage with us, and some events to look out for in the future. So shout out to NSO for making this TikTok to the left. What you see in front of us is our mission statement, but I think what's important for you all to know is that at our core, what we want to do is ensure that your rights, and thereby the rights of the entire community at LC, are respected. So that means that you have the right to have a quiet place to study, and that means that the entire LC community also has that same right. And you have the right to feel safe, and so does the entire LC community. In that right also have the want and need to be safe. So when things happen where rights are infringed upon or are violated, that's when we need to talk about it. We need to dialogue together and have a conversation to ensure that your rights and the collective rights of the entire community are respected. So this year, our big foci for this year are community accountability, which we can get into when we talk more about when you're going to be engaging with us, the community education piece, and then this really big piece, which is the SRR accountability. And that's something that we are continuously working on and wanting to be as transparent as possible with you all. And that means being in conversation with our community to understand how we can do better to support you all. So big question, when are you gonna meet with us? There's this real sweet video going on here, but you'll be meeting with us through what we call informal and formal hearings around policy violations. So for a little bit of context, on our side, we receive reports about possible policy violations that come from area directors, from RAs, from professors, other campus officials. Now these reports are pretty detailed in what they are recording, but for the most part, it's only one side of the story. So when we talk about dialogue, we want to have a conversation with students to understand the entire story. And what happens after somebody sends in one of these reports is that we schedule a meeting with the student who is in question of these policy violations, and they receive an email that talks about, you know, you're going to be meeting with this person on this date, will it work with you? And we are going to be holding these meetings through Zoom. When a meeting's finalized, we talk to students and have a conversation about what the policy violation was, what their perspective was, and if there was a harm that was caused, what can we do to ensure that there is accountability and that that harm doesn't reoccur. And I think a big part of this, as you see in the slide, is that it's co-creation. So we are, again, in conversation with students to figure out how can we all keep each other accountable so that we can rectify any harms that happen. The meetings that you'll have would be with resolution coordinators like myself or like Kate, even Jess, and then some other folks that are on campus too. All of us are trained to be able to have conversations that aren't punitive. We're not looking, again, to get folks in trouble. We're trying to understand how can we best support and help you all while you're going through all of these different things. Now we realize too that you are, you might have a roommate or roommates this year, so having a meeting through Zoom could be challenging. So we are also given the option, if needed, for an additional accommodation where you can book a room in Templeton, which is where our office is, on the bottom floor in campus living, and you can have a private meeting there. And there are more details around that if you choose to have that option, but we'll make sure that space is clean and ready for you to have your meeting with your resolution coordinator. The other times that you might want to utilize our services or even see us is if you have a conflict. And we are all trained, again, to be able to help support a dialogue, to facilitate one. And it's not just about a roommate, or it could be more than just about a conflict that you have a roommate. If there is an org or a club member or something happening where you just want someone to have sort of that third view to help mediate something, we can help you out with that. This year, we're also looking to expand training for others on campus. And that means that we're also providing educational opportunities too, which leads us to our next slide. So 2 big things to look out for, at least for this semester, that we have planned. You know, it's been a summer in turmoil, for lack of a better phrase. But what we want to do, because we know that you all are coming in with some really great energy and ideas, it's not just, on top of these really great readings that you have, and top of all these TED Talks that you're watching, and all these other great things that NSO and probably your classes will facilitate in conversation, we want to help you turn that into action. So one of the things that we'll be supporting this year, and this is brand new, is having a symposium around what are your rights to be able to protest. And that goes into the roots of why protesting is important, why being civically engaged is important, and what does that look like at LC, but also if you decide to go outside of the community, and how can you be safe, how can you take care of yourself physically, but also mentally, especially with these very heavy things, but very important things that need to be addressed. We also know it's an election year. So there are going to be different types of events that take place on campus, probably through Zoom, that you can attend, that will help you to learn more about how you can be an engaged voter, how you can be an informed voter, so that hopefully things can change for this upcoming year. And then I'll transition to Kate to talk to you a little bit more about some of these common violations that we usually work through.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so I'm going to be talking through 4 of the most common policy violations, especially amongst first-year students. So can we please go to the next slide? Excellent. So in addition to the ones I'm going to chat about, we also have all of our policy language up on our website, which you can check out here at this link. We are not trying to trick you by any means. We are very transparent. So I highly recommend that you take some time to go through there and get a better idea about what is appropriate and inappropriate conduct at Lewis and Clark. For the time being, I have a few that I'll focus on. All right, so we are going to talk through alcohol and drugs policy, as well as noise policy, hazing, and the directives policy. So I don't think this will come as a surprise. At Lewis and Clark, we do follow federal guidelines. So if you are under the age of 21, you are prohibited from possessing, consuming, or distributing alcohol. And this includes alcohol receptacles, such as beer cans or liquor bottles. And then regardless of what age you are not allowed to be visibly intoxicated or intoxicated to the point of incapacitation on campus. If you are over the age of 21, you can have alcohol on campus, but you are not allowed to distribute it to those that are underage. And we ask that open containers be kept in private spaces. There's also some restrictions about rapid consumption devices such as beer bongs. And then we ask that you avoid from displaying alcohol containers such as in windows. So an example of that is perhaps your parent gave you a really beautiful wine bottle and you didn't drink it, but you just think the glass is beautiful and you want to put it on a shelf just to look at. Sadly, that is against our policies. As an example. And then from here, I'll go on and talk a little bit more about our drugs policy. So similarly, because recreational drugs are generally not allowed federally. They are also not allowed on Lewis and Clark's campus, including cannabis. So even if you are over 21, you still are not allowed to have cannabis for recreational use on campus because of federal guidelines. And this includes paraphernalia as well. So if you happen to have a pipe or a bong or something of that nature, and it was ever found by a college official, they would likely confiscate that and we would destroy it. The one exception to take note of is, of course, prescription drugs are allowed. So if you have a prescription, you as the person that it is prescribed to are more than welcome to have it. We just ask that you don't abuse or distribute it to others that don't have a prescription, or that it's not theirs. Mm-hmm. All right, next up, just a few notes about our noise policy. So this relates back to just wanting to take care of those around you and also your own needs. So for example, we want everyone to be able to feel comfortable to use their space. So if you want to be able to listen to music, that is great. But we also want your neighbors to be able to study when they want to do so. So in order to keep folks accountable, we do have some general quiet hours at Lewis and Clark. So during weekdays, Sunday through Thursday, those are 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. And then on weekend nights, those quiet hours start a little bit later. So they don't start until midnight and then once again go until 10 a.m. With that being said, we have courtesy hours in effect 24 hours a day. And what that means is if anyone ever requests that you keep it down because they're trying to do homework, or maybe they just need some quiet time, we ask that you be respectful of anyone that asks you to keep the noise down, since we are all sharing space in close quarters. So with that being said, if you ever feel like your neighbors are being a little too noisy for your preference, we welcome you to go in and say hello and let them know that you would like some quiet time. And then your RAs are also an option as well. So if you ever felt uncomfortable doing that, you could just let your RA know and then they would take care of that for you. All right, another one is the hazing policy. Hazing is often associated with Greek life. At Lewis and Clark, we don't have Greek life though, and it can happen with other groups as well, such as clubs or sports teams. And generally, we view hazing as any sort of act that may make a student feel mentally or physically uncomfortable, or which can result in damage to property. And this is often associated with trying to be initiated or gain affiliation with a group of some kind. And you as students can also take part in helping us make sure that hazing is non-existent at Lewis and Clark. So we ask that you please try to be receptive to what's going on around you and interpret hazing as an issue that we want to eliminate from our community. So if you do ever recognize that it is happening, you are welcome to submit a report, and so that we can all work to make sure that our community is safe and that everyone feels comfortable in this environment. All right, so last policy that I'm gonna go over with y'all is the directives policy. And to say it in my own words, I would say that the directives policy is just complying with what school officials ask of you. So for example, there may be like a college official or a security officer that gives you a direction of some kind in order to keep you safe, or maybe ask for your name. We just ask that you follow what they ask of you. This also very much applies to the COVID guidelines that we've been working on this summer in order to make sure that we can all be safe this semester.
All All right, thank you, Michael and Kate. So I'm going to hop back in and chat a little bit about COVID-19 expectations for you. We have a video from the college that we're going to show you in a second. And yeah, so we'll go over that. I know that you all had a lot of these questions answered, possibly in your health promotion stuff. And I've seen a lot of you already following these guidelines on campus. So that's super exciting. And yeah, we're going to go over just a few specifics and how you can help keep the community accountable as well. So here's a video.
Welcome to Lewis and Clark. My name is Robin Holmes Sullivan, and I serve as the Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students here. That means I have primary responsibility for the issues and opportunities that occur for students outside the classroom, as well as oversight over many of the programs and services that students need and use every day, like the Health Center, Campus Living, International Students and Scholars Office, the Counseling Center, Athletics, and many other departments. I also serve on the President's Executive Council and have responsibility for the policies and procedures that assist students while they're part of the Lewis and Clark community. My team in the Division of Student Life have eagerly awaited your arrival. This place just doesn't work without you, our students. We're really glad that you are finally here. We spent countless hours planning for a safe return to campus and thinking of new ways to deliver a student experience that allows you to create social connections in a safe and inclusive way. Just because we're going to be safe doesn't mean we aren't going to have fun on campus. We will. At this point, you've all taken the We Before Me COVID education module. Thank you for doing that. You should have also submitted your attestation form signaling that you followed our direction about self-isolating for 2 weeks prior to your arrival. For the few of you who could not do that, you should have submitted the negative results of a COVID test you took at home, or you should have been tested in our health service. Again, thank you for following our directions and doing your part for the community. In addition to those requirements, we created this video to further highlight your responsibility to your campus community. We know the type of students who come to Lewis and Clark are socially minded problem solvers who have deep compassion for their community, and we're relying on each of you to care for one another by doing your part in COVID prevention. Absolutely no large gatherings, wash your hands and socially distance, wear a face covering, and limit your social interactions to 4 to 6 trusted friends who you know are doing the right thing. That's it. We can get back to the in-person instruction and the LC student experience we all know and love if we all play our part in We Before Me at LC. Thanks.
All right. So long video, but the main policy you need to know about is our overarching one on mitigation that's found on SR's website. Essentially, you just need to follow any guidelines issued by the college, and those guidelines might change depending on what phase we are in opening. Multnomah County is currently in phase 1, if you didn't know that. And we're also expecting you to follow any state, local, or federal guidelines as well. So I follow Kate Brown, our governor, on Instagram. That's my easiest way to get updates about her. And so that's how I learned that we are able to, we can't have gatherings of larger than 10 or more socially. And so that would be an expectation for you off campus. You shouldn't be leaving the bubble, so it really wouldn't apply to you that way. But if you were told that you were able to leave the bubble and Kate Brown issued guidance like that, we'd expect you to follow that as well. It's hard for us to enforce that, right? We're not tracking you off campus. We're not following you around making sure, but we're trusting that you're doing what's best for the community. And if it comes to our attention, we have to address it. Also, just add on to what Kate said, failure to comply with COVID-related requests or directions from college officials. So say we issue new guidelines today to you, we would expect that you would follow those. And then behaviors that ignore healthy guidelines or endanger the safety of the community can result in disciplinary action. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. Important guidelines to note already that are out there. Again, if a staff member asked you something and we talked about state and local guidelines, but remembering to maintain the social distancing and wear your mask outside of your dorm room. I've seen all of you doing that so far, and so you're doing a great job, and I'm not too worried about it. But we know this is going to take time for you to figure out, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Only visit buildings in your residential area. If you don't know what that is, feel free to ask your RA, but SOA, since I've been over it for so long, is a good example. Stewart, Odell, and Aiken are all considered a residential area. So you could enter any of those buildings if you live in one of them. But we're asking for, at least right now, that you're not going to other residential areas on campus so that we can keep each community safe and as protected as possible. Now, if you make a friend or something like that that's within your pod, so to speak, you can go and see them and like hang out on the lawn and things like that, socially distanced. We just want to keep our residential area safe for all of you. No off-campus visitors. Again, we're trying to maintain that bubble, but I do want to add that Tryon is included in our bubble. So if you want to take a run or go see nature and enjoy a lot of these things that Oregon have to offer, we're lucky to have Tryon right here down the street from us. So enjoy that while you are getting some exercise or enjoy nature. Now, harking back to that we before me at LC, we will help hold you all accountable, and we have staff who can file reports if needed. Campus safety is available to remind people to socially distance, but we really want to ask you all to speak up when you see something on campus. Don't be a bystander. We're not putting that all on you, but we know that you all listen to each other. You all have influence with each other. And so we want to empower you to say something and to give grace to each other as well. You're probably going to go to class one day and forget your mask. That doesn't have to be a report that comes through our office. It doesn't have to be something formal. It could be me going up to that person and saying, hey, I noticed that you don't have your mask on today. Did you forget it at home? And then let them go grab that mask. And so this is a little flow chart that we put together to kind of help clarify that a little bit. and it'll go on the SRR website eventually if you need some guidance. But if you feel safe approaching someone, please feel free to do so. And then be receptive to that if someone reminds you of a guideline on campus as well. Everybody just needs to look out for each other. And this is the same instructions we've given to staff and faculty too. So if Kate waltzes in here and she doesn't have her mask on, I'm gonna say, Kate, where's your mask today? And Kate's gonna go get her mask, I'm sure. Or she's gonna rebel, and then, I gotta call campus safety, and there's all of this other stuff. So we wanna avoid that if possible. You can always file a report about COVID or anything else by going to the SRR website. There's a button that says report a concern here, and you are welcome to file one with us if you can. But if you don't feel safe doing so, or you don't feel like that's something you're comfortable with, you can reach out to an RA, to campus safety, or to any college official and express your concern. Now, what happens when we get a report? Specifically about COVID. With any report, we have different layers that we move through that Michael talked about a little bit. But everything we look at this year is through the lens of COVID. An alcohol violation, like a party in your room, we might address the alcohol use. If you're under 21, we might address the noise, depending on how many people are in your room. But we also have to address the fact that, like, how safe are you being if you're throwing a party during COVID in your room as well? So just know that that's something that could come up in our conversations this year as an additional topic on top of the original violation. As for things that are reported to us COVID specifically, we're trying to be as educational as possible about your potential impact. People can get sick, and we don't want any of you to get sick. We don't want the college to go to online only, and that's really what we're going to remind you about. So we are going to issue warnings for minor violations at first, just to give you a reminder as everybody adjusts and kind of figures this whole thing out. It'll be a letter that outlines our guidelines to you on campus, as well as some reflection questions as well. And then if we continue to hear about you violating these health guidelines, then we'll move to maybe more informal meetings, such as agreed resolutions, or to formal meetings. And at the very end, if we can't get through to you, that's when we move to a removal from campus. And this is something that I want to emphasize. We try to avoid at all possible. And that's not just for COVID-19, that's for anything. Our goal is to keep you on campus. Our goal is to make sure that you're here and you're learning in the best way possible. And so we are going to move around in those steps. Now, that being said, these aren't formulaic, so you're not guaranteed a warning if you're doing something really severe, right? Someone goes and throws a COVID party off campus, please don't do it. But if you did, it's much more serious than not wearing your mask to class. And so we would take that as it comes and as it's reported to us. So that's just something to note about what you can expect in terms of COVID-19. The Welfare Intervention Network and Title IX, again, I just want to mention these. SRR doesn't run them. We're just closely linked with them. So Welfare Intervention Network, or what we call WIN, is essentially a whole bunch of staff across campus who meet together each week, and we talk about reports for students who are experiencing distress or health and safety risk. And we're there to support students, and we all have different relationships with you. So for me, I would come from the student conduct standpoint of, how are we affecting the community in that way? But we also have, the director of IME on the Welfare Intervention Network. We have student support services representatives. We have your academic advisors involved. We have HR involved, and athletics, a whole bunch of people. And their goal is to help coordinate a response to get you connected so that you can become safer, healthier, and be able to access your education. You might interact with us in a few ways. If we receive a report from a student or from a faculty member, we might do a follow-up interview with both the person reporting the information and the person being reported about, so that we can get an accurate idea of what the situation is. We might also ask a community member that we know is in close proximity to you to check in on you and make sure that you're doing okay. Area directors will primarily be doing this for you, those of you living in the residence halls. So they might say, hey, I heard that something something might be going on. Do you mind if we set up a Zoom call and chat for a little bit? Or if necessary, they might come and knock on your door and social distance and ask how you're doing. We also may ask that you meet with certain WIN members to coordinate support services. So if we feel like you need access to counseling or something like that, we might ask for you to at least check in with the counseling center or meet with case management, kind of on a case-to-case basis in that way. And that is about it about WIN, but just know that you can also report things to WIN. Here's the link here, and you can also just type in the Lewis and Clark search bar, Welfare Intervention Network. And there's a big gray button here at the top of the page. It says report a concerning situation. You can always report there if you have a friend you're concerned about and you're not sure how to get them connected, you're not sure where to start. Welfare Intervention Network is there to intervene on their behalf and their welfare. So that's it. Now, real quick, Title IX, Casey, are you on here? I don't know if she can chat. Maybe not. Okay, well, for Title IX, as I said, SRR does not oversee Title IX in our role of this, but we do work closely.
Hey, Jessica, she's a panelist now.
Oh, okay. Casey, you want to go ahead and chat?
There we go. Can you hear and see me now?
Yeah.
Oh, terrible light. Hi all, thanks for having me on for a few minutes. I primarily wanted to jump in to let you know that the sexual misconduct policy at Lewis and Clark is run parallel to what our awesome SRR folks do. It just has a couple extra requirements and things we have to be aware of in our training and how we respond to students. So that's why we have a Title IX coordinator. So that's me. And I want you to see my face and hear my voice and know that if there is a time that you need to ask a question about sexual misconduct or concern for a friend, you're not sending that request into the void. It's going to a person. That person's usually going to be me. We do have a couple of deputy coordinators, someone from the library for undergrads, someone from student support services, and then our HR and grad and law folks for some particular communities. But undergrad, it'll be me or a couple of other people who you would hear back from. I'm here as a resource for questions. But primarily you'll start learning about issues like consent and healthy relationships and our sexual misconduct policy when you go through our EverFi training that's assigned to you, and then in your consent workshops that you're doing during NSO. So I hope that those workshops get you thinking about some of these issues, and I'm always here for questions, queries. You can absolutely email, set up a time with me, set up a video or a phone call, and ask me something without using names so we can talk about what to do or what resources are there without you having to worry about privacy. So nice to meet you all, and thanks for having me, Jess and Michael and Kate.
Thank you, Casey. And I posted the link to the policy here if any of you are interested. It is very long, but it's really good information. I mean, we feel that way about all policy, I feel like, so that could be a part of it. And just to wrap up, here's the contact information for student rights and responsibilities. Your primary best way to get a hold of us is by emailing srr@lclark.edu. Our phone number is listed there, and we do have an office in Templeton. However, in order to stay safe ourselves and to de-densify, we will be not in the office as much. So it's much easier to get a hold of us through email and schedule an appointment if you need it, via Zoom, and if necessary, we can meet in person and social distance that way. I will be the only one that's in the office, and I will be in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's from, I typically get in at 8:30 and leave around 4:30, so that's your window to come and see me. If I'm in a meeting or something like that, I'll have something posted for you as well. And I want to direct you to our website as well. It has a lot of good information, including a reminder about COVID things, our statement on Black Lives Matter, and just our general policy links as well. So check that out. Give us a contact if you need. Some of you have already been in email with me a lot about these attestations, so thank you for your patience. And I have a good staff here, so if you need anything, we're here for you. And yeah. So I'm going to stop presenting. I can't actually access the questions while I'm presenting, so I'm going to move down and see if we have any.
Yeah, I can tell you some of them, Jess.
Yeah.
A quick one is just around testing for COVID. Is that something that undergrads are going to be doing next week?
Yes, you will be expected to test next week. And you should be getting an email about that with specific instructions on what that's going to look like for you. And this is really just to catch, anybody who might have caught something traveling or something like that, or just to be an extra safety net involved in this whole thing. You'll see that a lot here. We're going to do a lot of safety nets, a lot of things to do as a precaution. Even if we're not super worried, we want to make sure you're being as safe as possible.
Yeah. And then we have a couple questions around COVID pods.
Yeah.
And it seems to center around, like, if we have friends that are at like another dorm hall, can they interact and be part of our pod if we're not in the same dorm?
Yeah, so I think Robin's going to clarify some of this for you all, our VP, but my understanding is that you can have whoever you want in your pod. It's just you won't be able to visit those people in their residence hall rooms because you're restricted to your area. But if you wanted to spend time together on a quad somewhere, or you wanted to go to Tryon together, that's okay. But for right now, we're not allowing students to visit each other's rooms if they live outside that residential area.
And then we have one more around, will international students be tested again next week?
That's a specific question that'll be answered in the communication. So keep an eye out on that. I think they're going to list if any groups are not allowed or not included in that piece there.
And then the last one is, what class do you play, Jessica?
And that is a really important question. I am a Tiefling Cleric, Tempest Cleric, which is specifically because I watch Critical Role, and one of my favorite characters is also a Tiefling Cleric. I'm just not the same type of cleric as her, so.
Cool, awesome.
You're welcome. COVID and clerics, that's great. Okay. If you have more questions that come up, or if we miss something, email at srr@lclark.edu. And thank you all so much for your time. I'm glad we were able to give you a little bit of time back at the end of this as well. I'm so excited for you, excited to learn with you and grow with you this year. Goodbye, everybody.